Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am going to share with you guys what I have learned of what it means to be a Christian wife, how to be a Christian wife, and what exactly that may look like compared to what wives are told to be of the world. So obviously, if you read the Bible, you know that some of the things that God has commanded us as wives to do, or how to speak or how to act, may look completely different than what the world tells us. So if you are a new Christian, if you have been newly married and you're kind of struggling in that area and you're not sure how exactly what a Christian wife may look like or how to be a better Christian wife, then please keep watching. I wrote down some of my helpful tips on how to be a Christian wife in a notebook. So I actually designed this notebook myself. Me and my husband have we have our own brand called Branded with Gospel. It's in my description box if you're interested in checking out some of our products. It's www.brandedwithgospel.com. We try our best to keep all of our prices affordable, but we also donate a percentage of our purchases goes to an orphanage in Africa to help 15 children with food and shelter and clothing and all of that. So this is one of our products. I designed this myself, so it's just like a spiral notebook, and it says grace through faith, and I have Ephesians 2:8-9 on the front, and just like a cute little flower. But anyway, just wanted to quickly throw that in there. So I did write down the notes in this book. So first things first, I am going to read 1 Corinthians 13. This is my husband's Bible. I'm just borrowing it. So you can follow along if you like. So I am reading from the KJV. So some of the words obviously are going to sound a little different. In other translations, the main word is love, but in the KJV, it's charity, so it just means the same thing. Okay, so though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth, beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. And then there's a couple verses after that, but pretty much it's 1 Corinthians 13 from 4 to 7. I wrote down in my notepad a helpful way to know if we are on the right track of how to be a Christian wife is when you're reading 1 Corinthians 13, every single time that you see the word charity or you see the word love, switch it with your name and ask yourself, am I this? Is this me? Does this description line up with who I am and my personality and my character and the things that I do? So for example, if I go back to it and it says, Charity suffereth long and is kind. So I would say, okay, let's switch it with my name. So Angela suffereth long and is kind. Is that true? Charity envieth not, charity vaunteth not itself. So I would again switch that with me. So I feel like that's a really helpful way to know, okay, let's make a list of the things that I feel like I currently am good at, or the things that I currently am doing in my relationship. And let's make a separate list of the things that I feel like I'm lacking, or things that I can improve on. So that I feel like will help you have a better understanding of where you currently are and where you would like to be. So my next point is, it's really important for us to understand our roles as wives. So obviously we know in Genesis, when God created man, he created Adam first, and then he created Eve. So when he created Adam, we all know the story, I hope, where Adam said that, all the other animals have someone for them. They all have a partner, and me, I'm the one that doesn't have a partner. So God then created Eve out of him for her to be his helper. Us as women, we need to understand that our role is beautiful. God made us exactly the way that we were supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with our role. Our role is not lacking anything. It definitely does not mean that we are not equal in value. So just because God created us to be the helper and the supporter does not mean that he values or loves us any less. Both roles are equally important in creating a family and creating a marriage that is successful and that works according to the Bible. Again, I have understand the roles we have to be his helper and his supporter. Husbands do have a higher responsibility than wives, so they should be held to a different degree, which is to be the head of the family. So it would be God the Father, then Jesus, then the husband, then the wife, then the children. I wrote down here that husbands should be the head of the family, including making final decisions. That does not mean that us as wives, that we don't have a say in anything. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I know that there's a lot of extremists on both ends, and one of the extremes is that women should remain quiet and not say anything. That is not what I'm trying to share with you guys. Women definitely do have a say in their marriage, and you should not be afraid to go to your husband and speak to him about anything and everything. I actually do encourage that. You should go to your husband about every single thing. Do not be afraid to communicate with him about things that you are thinking of or feeling. If there's a big life event happening in your marriage, go to your husband and voice to him your opinion, because I guarantee if your husband loves you and he is a man of God, that he is going to value how you're feeling and your thoughts. What I mean by allowing your husband to make the final decision is, hopefully when you guys have a disagreement or something comes up in your life and you're trying to figure out like which way to go or what to decide, hopefully, obviously the end goal is to come to a resolution together. Don't think about it as like running two separate races and seeing who's going to get to the finish line first, but think about it more of as you guys are on the same team. So if we think of like a sports team, obviously all of the players have an end goal to reach together. It's a common goal. So you're not going to be doing things against your teammates because you both want to win. You both want to make it to the end together. So you should kind of view your marriage like that. You're on a team. You shouldn't feel like you are ever against your husband. So you want to, again, work together, make decisions together. But Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Obviously, life happens. We're not perfect. We're humans. And you may just continue to have disagreement with your husband. He may not agree with you on something that is really, really important to you. And even after you've voiced your opinion, I really strongly do believe that according to the Bible, that the man should be making the final decision. Because I know I may get hate for this, but I just feel like most men, this may be case by case basis, because I know that some husbands may take advantage or abuse this, but generally speaking, men are more logical thinkers, and women, we tend to think a lot with our feelings and our emotions. So with that being said, I feel like we should create a safe space where our husband could make the final decision, where he has that authority to do so in a healthy way, not a way that belittles the woman or takes advantage of her. Another point that I have is to be okay with letting your husband protect you, protect your family, your children, and to provide, to be the provider, and for him to be the main one to guide your family. But my next point is for us as women to enjoy being caretakers of our home. This is something that I feel like modern day women are not typically taught how to do. We're actually taught the opposite. We're taught to, you know, in a marriage, you want things 50-50. If you're cleaning and you're doing the dishes and you're doing laundry, then your husband should be doing equal amount. And I get it. I get it to the point where if you have two people working, if you have both husband and wife working, obviously coming home from work, you're tired, and it can get frustrating to be the only one doing things and taking care of the home and the family. But if we're talking biblically, how to be a Christian wife, I really truly believe that we shouldn't look at our home as so routine and mundane, I believe the word is, but we should actually genuinely enjoy doing those things. I feel like it's okay for us to go back to the traditional ways of how women and wives used to be. Like years ago, generations ago, wives, typically speaking, especially if you were following the Bible, they genuinely enjoy taking care of their home and their families. So that included cooking, fresh home cooked meals every day if possible. You know, doing the laundry, folding clothes, putting it away, having the house smelling nice and organized and clean, and things like that, like raising your children instead of sending them off to public school, which again, it all depends on what your life is like financially and schedule wise. This is not possible for everybody. I feel like as women, we should genuinely enjoy doing those things. We should find pleasure in doing them as a Christian wife, because I really do believe, biblically speaking, that that is the role that we were intended to have. By saying this, it doesn't mean that if you don't do those things, or it doesn't mean that if you know, financially, if you can't have like fresh cooked meals every day, or if you can't be the one to raise your children and stay home and be the one to educate them, it doesn't mean that you are not being a Christian wife. I just feel like we shouldn't see the home life, we shouldn't see caretaking as a chore, but we should genuinely enjoy doing those things, because as a wife, we know that by doing those things, we are taking care of our family, which we are commanded to do. My next point is, don't be so quick to fight. And by that, I mean the Bible talks about wives having, well, specifically women, having a quiet and meek spirit. Again, that does not mean that you shouldn't voice your opinion or you can't ever disagree with your husband. That's not at all what I mean. What it means is just, the way that I wrote it down here was, when you and your husband are having a disagreement, think before you speak. And even after you feel like you know what you want to say, I would think about it again some more. I wrote down, words are the easiest way that we can permanently damage our marriage. Words are so important, and when we have different emotions of like anger, frustration, that can lead to unnecessary hurt, or hurt that we didn't even expect that was going to happen, hurt that can be easily prevented if we just became more aware of our emotions and then really thought about what those emotions were making us think and then what our thinking was making us say. So I have here, instead of trying to win an argument, we should focus more on our communication skills. So when we speak to our husbands about an issue, try your best not to escalate it to a fight. Obviously, sometimes we can't really control that, or sometimes it's on his end and he's the one escalating it. But if he is the one escalating it, instead of adding to it, instead of adding more fuel to the fire and making the fire bigger, we want to kind of diminish it. So do things to keep yourself calm, to hopefully help keep him calm and not create this massive, huge argument or fight. Hear him out, hear what he has to say, genuinely hear his feelings, and don't just allow him a chance to talk but then quickly reply with an answer, but genuinely hear what he has to say and communicate back to that. As Christian wives, of course, we should focus on a mutual resolution with our husbands, and both should be working towards the same end goal, which is what I was speaking about earlier, which is ultimately, if you can sum it up in like 2 easy words, a happy marriage. I also have another point that says, is this fight worth it? So ask yourself, is this the situation that just came up in our marriage, is it worth it for me to go to him and start a fight about it? Is this situation worth me potentially hurting my husband or causing division and discourse between us? That's ultimately up to you whether you think something is worth it or not. But I would say that most of the time, if we ask ourselves that question instead of just jumping into an argument, I feel like we would avoid so many more fights if we just took that extra time to ask ourselves that. Another point that I actually highlighted to remember that I feel like is very, very helpful, and this is something that I have to do as well, is we have to remember as Christian wives that obviously as Christians that we know there's good and we know that there's evil. So we have to remember that it ultimately is not us against our husbands, but it's the enemy trying to cause division and discourse between us and our husbands. So we know that the enemy hates marriage. He hates everything that God created to be good and perfect, which is marriage. So he's going to do everything he can to try to break up your marriage and ultimately to lead it to divorce. One of the greatest ways that he can do that is obviously through our emotions and through creating fights. So when you are having a fight with your husband, just helping to remember that it's not you against each other, but it's in that moment the enemy trying to divide you two. Another point that I have, this one's kind of short, but I thought it was really, really important, is to be selective as a Christian wife on who you share information with. So I know as women, we love to, like talk to our girlfriends about what is going on in our relationship. When our husband does something that we don't agree with, we automatically want to like go tell somebody like, hey, girl, have you been through this? Can you help me with some advice? Like, can you believe that he did this? Can you believe that this happened? And I understand that's our like natural social aspect of us, that we want to be social and we want to talk things through, especially as women, whether it's our girlfriends or whether it's a cousin or our mom or perhaps someone at church or whatever it may be. I would say that first, you want to limit the information that you give. So you don't want to like spill out everything. You don't want to share your dirty laundry with everybody, because ultimately I feel like sometimes when you get too much outside information, it really can mess with your head and mess with your emotions, and it can just add things to your marriage that were not meant to be there in the first place. So it can actually cause more damage instead of doing good. If you are going to speak to someone and share information with someone, I highly suggest, at least, obviously first, I would suggest that they're a Christian, because you want to speak to someone that holds the same values as you. So me as a Christian, I'm not going to go ask for marriage advice from an atheist, let's say. Maybe your best friend is an atheist and you guys have some really good conversations. I don't know how that would be, but personally, my advice is to not do that. So first, you want to speak to someone who is a Christian, so a Christian woman. And second, I really feel it's important to make sure the person you are speaking to is also married. I say that because if you are asking about marriage advice, you don't really want to go seeking advice from someone who is not married. Especially, you want to seek after someone who has a successful, happy marriage. So you don't want to be asking advice from someone who either always complains about their husband, or someone who is not having a good marriage, or possibly is on the edge of divorce themselves. So you want to seek advice from a Christian woman who is actually going to help you and give you sound suggestions on how to improve your marriage, and not just what the world is going to tell you. Okay, so my next point is, as a Christian wife, you really want to do things to try to make your home a warm and loving place for your husband. So if he goes to work and he's at work all day, when he comes home, you want him to enjoy to come home. You don't want him to be at work, driving home and being like, oh, I'm going to that place now, where my wife always fights with me and everything's dirty and the kids are always like crazy or whatever. You want him to be excited to come home. I wrote down, create a comforting and loving space. So that may look different for everybody. It depends. I'm not gonna say like you have to do X, Y, and Z to create a loving and comfortable home. That's gonna be depending on your husband and what he likes. But obviously some simple ways is pretty much things that I've already stated in this video. So like cooking his favorite meal or cooking his favorite dessert. If he really likes a dessert, like Michael, he loves this dessert called Death by Chocolate. So, if he's at work or if he's out, okay, then I'll surprise him making his favorite dessert. When he gets home, it'll be ready for him. Something unexpected that, makes him realize, okay, wow, she was thinking of me today and she went through all of this trouble to make this happen for me. That shows that person that you were thinking of them and that you care for them and that you want them to come home happy. Respect him, sacrifice for him. I have a lot of notes. Don't always nag him or complain. Obviously, sometimes we're gonna have to mention some things to him that we don't like or that we don't agree with. But I would highly suggest to not be like the typical nagging wife, always getting on him about something. Just try not to do that. Okay. Sorry, I had to have a sip of water. My throat was really dry. We have to remember that marriage is a sacred covenant and a sacred unity that God created. So I know the world doesn't teach that, but that should be really something that should be something that us as wives really value and hold to. The next point I really like, because it's not something that a lot of people talk about, and I feel like especially it's something that's easily forgotten when we get married. But this point is not only for Christian wives, I feel like it's important for all wives, is we should keep pursuing our husbands in passion and in love. So what I mean by that is, even though we're married, we should continue to date our husbands. What does that mean? I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's, I wrote like specific points here of continue having date nights. I know that we think of dating as before marriage, which it essentially is, but you want to continue putting in that effort to continue dating him, like continue doing special things and having special moments together to keep that spark alive. You can do things like cooking his favorite dinner, like I said earlier, surprising him in different ways. That's going to be different for every husband, depending on what they like and what their interests are. Watch movies together, have moments of cuddling. Always make time for cuddling. I know that sounds something so simple and so easy, but it's really important. Share love songs. So this is something that Michael and I have always done throughout our entire relationship, and we have loved it because, for those of you who don't know, me and him were in a long distance relationship for 3 years. That's one of the ways that we helped keep the love alive and like surprise each other with something nice randomly, and just to let the other person know, like, hey, I'm thinking of you, I miss you, and these words in this love song is what I want to tell you right now. It's also really romantic. Like, who doesn't like romance, right? So it keeps the marriage feeling young and alive and fun. And because the thing with marriage is, when you get married and you obviously live together and you're going through your day-to-day life every day, marriage typically, it can start feeling very routine. Like, you're on a schedule and you stick to that schedule every day. It becomes very repetitive and predictive. That's something about dating that typically was not there. So you guys would go on dates and you would get excited to see each other and do different things and have different experiences and moments together. You want to continue that. You don't want to stay in those everyday boring routine, because the spark that you guys once built, that's how people allow that spark to die down. And then by the time you notice it, it's often too late. Send cute and thoughtful messages throughout the day. Just, if he's at work or if he's out or if he even goes to like pick up something from the grocery store, send him a cute message. It doesn't hurt to quickly text him and let him know that you're thinking of him, or that you miss him, that you love him, that you can't wait till he gets home, whatever you can think of. Another really cute idea that I love is writing little love notes in cute places for him to find. So like, if you make his lunch, then a little love note in his lunch. So when he's at work and he's gonna go eat his sandwich or something, then he sees what you did for him. And I think that's really cute. Always say I love you, kiss goodnight. Oh yeah, and one thing I have is to hug. I feel like a lot of people do not think of this, especially as adults. I don't know why, but hugging I feel like is really, really important. It's a quick, simple way to connect quickly and embrace each other, and it often helps relieve stress and anxiety just in that quick moment. I just feel like hugging for some reason is not really talked about, but I feel like it's important. Showering together, that's a really cute way to just continue connecting and help keep that spark alive. I might get hate for this point, and that's okay, but I think something important is, as Christian wives or as wives in general, I feel like sometimes we should make the extra effort to dress up nice for our husband. So I know that when we get married, we tend to feel comfortable, like, okay, I already found my person, so, you know, I don't always have to put on makeup, or I don't always have to do my hair or get dressed nice. But the way that I think about it is back to the point that I just mentioned about continuing to date him. How did you look when you first dated? So no one's saying you have to like go all out, but try to look the same way sometimes. I'm not saying you have to do this every day, but sometimes just surprise him and look the same way that you looked when he first fell in love with you. So how did he fall in love with you? What made him fall in love? Whatever that was, do more of that. And next point I have is, don't compare your husband to anyone else's husband but Christ. So if you're gonna hold your husband to a certain standard, then just hold him to the standard that husbands are supposed to be biblically. Don't compare him to your dad, or don't compare him to someone else's husband. Definitely do not compare him to people in your past. That can be very, very damaging, and that in no way really helps your marriage, and that's not going to help him to want to change. Hold every thought captive. The Bible tells us that, and it's so important. I feel like that scripture goes such a long way, more than we think. So if you have thoughts thinking negative, recognize it and rebuke it. Entertaining negative thoughts about our husbands will end up, it stirs up emotions in us, and it ends up causing like feelings of resentment and hatred sometimes, and just like annoyance and frustration. And when you entertain those thoughts, then that's going to end up changing how you treat him and how you react to him in your marriage. You want to replace those thoughts with thoughts of thankfulness. Ask yourself, what do you love about your husband? What does he do well, instead of whatever negative thought is coming in your mind about maybe what he doesn't do well. So replace it with something good. My last 2 points is the most obvious ones as a Christian wife. I feel like I probably should have added this in the beginning, but I wanted to end with the 2 most important ones, which is to pray for him. You want to be praying for your husband every single day, and you want to pray together. Ask your husband, if you don't already, ask him to, you know, create some special one-on-one quiet time where you can both come together in prayer and speak to God. And obviously the last one is to read the word together. So what me and Michael do is, at the very least, if we're having a super busy day, at the very least, we try our best to read 1 chapter together. So what we do is, we like the number 3 because the number 3 shows up a lot in our marriage. So we just go with that, and we'll do, like, if a chapter has 30 verses, we'll just go 3 by 3. So Michael will read like the first 3, then I'll read the second 3, and it keeps going until we finish the chapter. And then like in between, we'll talk about it, like, hey, did you understand this? What do you think this meant? Or when we're done, we can discuss what we thought about it. But that's just a this is just an easy way that we do it. Obviously, you don't have to do that. You can definitely read more than one chapter. You don't have to do like the sharing of verses. I just feel like it's a good interactive way to read with your husband. And it's nice to also hear like two different voices. So you hear his voice and then you hear yours. And I just feel like it's a nice way to read together instead of separating chapters. Those are all of the tips and suggestions that I wrote down to help you guys on how to be a Christian wife. I have a lot more than I can talk about, but this video is already super long and I'm already losing my voice. I've tried drinking some water, but yeah, if you guys want to hear maybe like a part 2, let me know in the comments below. Or if you guys would want to hear how to be a Christian husband, then I can try to get Michael to agree to come on my channel and do like a part 2 with men. Doesn't even have to be for men. Like, I'm sure some women, some wives can be interested. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. Please check out my links in the description. I have some Christian merch with my husband that I mentioned before that I made this notebook, and my husband also has some cool men's apparel. Follow me on Instagram if you like to keep up with my life and more photos. You could see our son Gabriel there. And yeah, I guess I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.